A few days ago, I saw this picture on Threads. Well, since it's required... Hey, wait a second. I feel like I'm missing something. Since when did Mark Zuckerberg become cool? After all, we're talking about a guy who was discovered by the general public in a movie that opens with a scene where he gets dumped.
You're gonna go through life thinking that girls don't like you because you're a nerd. And I want you to know from the bottom of my heart that that won't be true. It'll be because you're an asshole.
You'd think his image couldn't get any worse after this movie, but yeah, it would get much worse. He's accused of reselling your private data.
Do you think that Palantir has ever scraped data from Facebook?
Senator, I'm not aware of that.
People who don't care enough to hate him turn him into a meme and accuse him of being a reptilian.
Mark, are the allegations true that you are secretly a lizard? I'm gonna have to go with no on that.
Or Photoshop him with a Kardashian body. Whatever he did, it seemed impossible for him to rebuild his image. He takes up surfing, a cool sport, but the paparazzi managed to get one of the worst photos of all time, where Zuck puts a whole bottle of sunscreen on his face. And what's worse, his explanation ended up being even weirder than the original photo.
I noticed that there was this paparazzi guy following us. So I was like, oh, I don't want him to recognize me. So you know what I'm gonna do? I'm just gonna put a ton of sunscreen on my face and then you won't know who I am.
But in the last few months, the tide seems to have turned. Not even 2 years after being mocked for his metaverse by pretty much everyone and their grandmas, Zuck is starting to get his revenge. He's gone from this to this. Not only has he started working out, but he's reached impressive levels for a non-professional. In the Murph Challenge, which pushes even gym bros to their limits, Zuck probably beats 90% of all athletes. The guy who was pathetically refreshing his ex's Facebook page at the end of the social network is now posting dadfluencer photos on Instagram. The loser who created a website to rate the appearance of Harvard students is now choking guys on a tatami. The current situation is summed up by the hosts of the My First Million podcast.
I've become such a stan for Zuck, and this whole thing, he's just proven to be like the man. He's come off very likable.
2 years ago, at the time of Facebook's meta rebranding announcements, nothing was less cool than Zuckerberg. But today, it's become totally normal to define yourself as a Zuck fanboy on a podcast with 100,000 listeners.
All he needed to do was start working out. The guy takes 10 jiu-jitsu classes and learns how to do a pull-up, and all of a sudden, idiots like us are like, you know what? I fuck with this guy. Totally worked on me.
So yes, the average Joe still hates Zuck and always will. But the average Joe hates everyone who's been more successful than him. It's the same old story. There is a curse that strikes the great tech CEOs. Founders are considered geniuses in the early days, but the bigger they get, the more they are hated by the general public. It happened to Bill Gates, Bezos, Musk. The only known cure is to die at the right time, like Steve Jobs. If he were still alive, he would be blamed for Apple's lack of innovation over the last few years and the predatory policy of the 30% App Store commission. And if Musk had died 4 years ago, he would be remembered as one of the greatest visionaries of the 21st century. Harvey Dent was right.
You either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
That makes Zuck unique. He's a founder who was admired then hated and who is now making an incredible comeback. It's hard to imagine a worse startup myth than the story of Facebook. All the biggest tech founders have a story worthy of their company's success. Larry Page and Sergey Brin founded Google in a garage. The three founders of Airbnb got the idea for their company from renting out their own air mattresses. Instead of retiring to the Bahamas, Elon Musk reinvested all the money from the sale of PayPal in a crazy project nobody believed in, sending rockets to Mars. But Facebook was created by a hater who wanted to become popular so badly that he coded a site to compare his classmates' appearance to animals. And that's not even the worst of it, because one of the greatest directors of our time made a movie about it. And it just so happens that this movie is a masterpiece that has become a classic and that almost everyone has seen. Zuck became world famous with a film that portrays him as a ruthless loser who betrayed his closest friend and whose entire success hinges on a stolen idea. The nicest thing the movie has to say about him is,
"You're not an asshole, Mark. You're just trying so hard to be."
The film script is adapted from a book whose title shows how little credit the public gives Zuckerberg, The Accidental Billionaires. The book presents the creation of Facebook as a bad joke, and Zuckerberg's reactions as that of a sociopath insensitive to the harm he causes people around him.
That historical moment, one that inarguably led to one of the greatest fortunes in modern history, did not begin with a crime so much as a college prank. The kid was angry, and he had with him a number of Beck's beers. As usual, he was probably wearing his Adidas flip-flops and a hoodie sweatshirt. His reputation was a little fucked, however. Certainly the girls on campus weren't going to be thinking too highly of him. Although, From the sound of it, the kid wasn't exactly a Casanova. Comparing farm animals to girls? That wasn't the sort of thing you came up with when you were getting laid regularly. The funny thing was that Mark hadn't seemed to really understand why anyone was so upset with the site, but he was truly confused by the anger that had been directed toward him by the various female groups on campus.
But when David Fincher made the film, he didn't particularly want to portray Zuck as a loser. As a result, the film has a more nuanced version of the character than the book. Not least because director David Fincher and screenwriter Aaron Sorkin had very different opinions of Zuck. Sorkin adapted the screenplay from the book, which is pretty incriminating against Zuck, but Fincher declared in an interview,
"I wanted to find something human about everybody, and I never saw Mark as the villain. I don't see Sean as the villain. I wouldn't have done it. Had it been a lynch mob going after somebody, I'm not interested in taking the successful down a few pegs. I just thought he was an interesting, compelling force."
Even though Fincher declared that he had no intention to crucify Mark Zuckerberg, many people who saw the movie have kept the image of a loser with no charisma, ready to do anything to become popular, but who is still a loser with no friends after becoming rich. Even the few who sympathize with the character, like this journalist who wrote about Zuckerberg's Revenge of the Nerd, present the creation of Facebook as
an Ivy League social misfit's drunken act of revenge against a girl who spurned him. Like so many historic achievements in arts, letters, and commerce, Facebook was born of a romantic rejection.
In The Social Network, one of the characters observes that every creation myth needs its devil. What's crazy is that in the case of Facebook, the devil is also the main character of the story. 10 years on, there are still people who think the film was too soft on Zuckerberg and that is actually even more despicable than he appeared on film. Check out this article.
The Social Network, 10 years later, feels too sympathetic to Mark Zuckerberg.
As a result, the film solidified Zuck's image as a kid with questionable principles, not worth taking seriously. Look how he was portrayed 4 years after Facebook's creation.
Sitting atop this growing company, directing an internet revolution, is a young, geeky computer programmer who created the site only 4 years ago. This is the face of Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, the mogul who's guiding its extraordinary growth. What everyone wants to know is he old enough to be running a company some people say is the biggest thing since Google?
In this interview, Zuckerberg is faced by a journalist who doesn't exactly seem to be a social networking expert. He's obviously annoyed but lacks the charisma to fight back, which leads to this kind of otherworldly sequence.
You seem to be replacing Larry and Sergey as the people out here who everyone's talking about. You're just staring at me.
Is that a question?
Yeah. We were warned that he can be awkward.
He was even dubbed
toddler CEO
by a tech analyst who stated in the same program,
"You see some of these mistakes they're making very early on and you worry where the judgment is."
Is he a good CEO?
I don't know. I think he's very young.
Looking back, the Mark Zuckerberg was too young to be qualified take was absolute garbage. And if I were the author of the book that inspired The Social Network, I would say the title Accidental Billionaires has aged very, very badly. Because if there is one thing that Zuck has proven since then, is that his billions have clearly not been earned at random. In retrospect, there is a ridiculous gap between the disaster of the popular myth of Facebook's creation and the intelligence Zuck has shown in all his future decisions. Zuck bet on brilliant acquisitions that nobody believed in. In 2012, when he decided to buy Instagram, everyone laughed because he paid $1 billion for a startup that wasn't even 2 years old and had only 13 employees. Today, the platform is estimated to be worth over $100 billion. Same again with WhatsApp, which at the time was the second biggest acquisition in tech history. Many people criticized the Metaverse project as some kind of grandiose fantasy, but those people have completely misunderstood Facebook's strategic objectives. Today, Meta is entirely dependent on Google and Apple to give its users access to their apps. When Apple decided to change the rules of the game to favor their own ad platform, they instantly vaporized $10 billion of Facebook's revenue without Zuck being able to do anything in response other than take it on the jaw. His plan is to create the next platform, one that will replace the cell phone in the same way that mobile has supplanted the PC as the primary means of connecting to the internet. So, far from the delusion of a megalomaniac, the switch to Meta was a bold gamble, which may very well fail, let's be clear, but one that demonstrates a long-term strategic vision, especially when you remember that Facebook bought the virtual reality headset firm Oculus in 2014. In other words, when he announced the name change, he had been working on the successor to the iPhone for over 7 years. The same goes for the launch of Instagram Stories. At the time, analysts described them as a lame attempt to copy Snapchat, but in hindsight, it was the right decision. Zuck put his ego aside and accepted being regarded as an uncool copycat, but it allowed him to stunt Snapchat growth, which at the time was his most dangerous rival. The list goes on. At the time of its IPO, many analysts criticized Facebook's lack of profitability. The business model was unproven. Of course, the business model proved extremely profitable in the years that followed. The media portrayed Zuckerberg in his early years as a guy who barely knew what he was doing, but time after time, he has shown that he knows exactly where he's going. Wherever he decides to compete, his competitors' growth comes to a halt. That's what happened with Snapchat and Instagram Stories, and that's what he's trying to do with Threads. He once described the pre-Elon Musk Twitter like this.
It's as if they drove a clown car into a gold mine and fell in.
And he's taken advantage of the post-buyout chaos to enter the arena with a product supposedly developed in 6 months by 20 engineers, which is tough for Twitter with its 550 engineers. When you look at Zuck today, it's very hard to maintain the image of a loser turned billionaire by accident portrayed in the social network. That's why Zuck isn't just a nerd who's grown abs. It takes a pretty phenomenal mindset to rise above the constant insults and scorn from the press and public. In his position, 99.99% of people would have taken the billions and let someone else run the company.
Just as a human being, how does it feel though? So many people in the US, the place you call home, have a negative view of you as a leader, as a human being, and the company you love.
Well, I mean, it's not great. If I wanted people to think positively about me as a person, I don't know. I'm not sure if you go build a company. There is a dynamic where a lot of the other people running these companies, internet companies, have sort of stepped back and they just do things that are sort of less controversial.
That's also why you can respect someone like Andrew Tate even if you don't agree with him. What's impressive isn't the punchlines or the muscles or the cars. It's that the whole world is trying to shut him up and he seems absolutely unfazed. But whereas Andrew Tate is hated because he says shocking punchlines, Zuck is hated because he's really powerful. If you've been hanging out on Twitter, X, over the past few months, you've probably come across some pretty bizarre exchanges between the world's two most famous tech CEOs. Elon Musk challenges Zuck to a
dick measuring contest.
Elon Musk invites Zuck to
a cage fight.
Elon Musk says
Zuck is a cuck.
It's up to you to decide if you think it's cool or if it's a bit cringy coming from a 52-year-old. What I find interesting is that Musk is directly playing on the cliché of Zuck, the weakling nerd from the social network. But that doesn't sit well with the new Zuck, who wins jiu-jitsu competitions and could destroy Musk in the octagon. In turns, Zuck trolls Musk, but he knows how to hit him where it hurts. Remember that Musk paid $44 billion to buy Twitter, and at the time, he himself complained that he was paying too much. Since then, Twitter has lost around half its value. So it's understandable that he's very slightly annoyed when Zuck makes his first tweet in 10 years to announce the release of Threads. Zuck follows up on his own platform by talking about Twitter's missed opportunities and his desire to make Thread #1 in the market.
Okay, so for those keeping score at home, Elon bought a product for $44 billion, and then Zuck built the same product for 1,000 times less, is stealing all of his users like an absolute Chad, and is, God willing, about to choke him out in 90 seconds on a steel cage soon. Huh. So that's what a cuck means now.
But beyond the little jokes, Zuck has learned a lot from Musk. Because Musk's genius lies in creating a personality cult by sharing memes on the internet. It plays on an angle I call the stars, they are just like us effect, which consists in juxtaposing an unattainable celebrity with a normal, everyday action. The name comes from the magazine US Weekly, which publishes photos of stars doing everyday things like buying bread or picking up their children from school. Another example is Henry Cavill, who had a huge viral moment when he decided to share videos of himself building a PC. A guy who looks like this, being a gamer, breaks people's brains. Musk has built his image on this psychological bias. He's a billionaire with more brain power than your entire neighborhood combined, but he shitposts all day long on Twitter just like a normal guy. Take this tweet, which has 90 million views. If it didn't come from Musk, it would be completely mundane. The joke isn't even original. But coming from the guy who reinvented the electric car and the space industry, people are freaking out. Zuck has finally figured out that people call him reptilian because they find him unrelatable. He became so rich, so young, and he has so much power in his hands that people can't understand him. He might as well be a lizard from another galaxy. For years, Zuck tried to add another dimension to his personality by taking on cool challenges, such as learning Mandarin mandarin in a year, or eating only animals that he had killed himself. But the effect was the opposite of what he wanted. Normal people don't do this kind of challenges, so it reinforced the alien aspect. Instead, he had to copy Musk's strategy, use the stars they are just like us effect, and do things ordinary people do, especially when they are kinda lame, like taking his daughters to a Taylor Swift concert with glitter all over his face. But above all, Zuck has learned from Musk's mistakes, such as behaving like an irresponsible kid, like when he tried to back out of the Twitter takeover, only to be forced to complete the deal, a messed up personal and family life, and someone who just doesn't seem very happy. Zuck is building his goodwill by positioning himself as the anti-Musk, more mature, more balanced, happier. When you see Musk walking like this at a Tesla presentation in China, and when you see Zuck answering questions like this before the US Congress, you feel that they have something else in common. They have both leveraged their nerd status to win the sympathy of a fraction of the public. In the 80s, when people wanted to portray a CEO in pop culture, they used a 50-year-old man in a suit and tie, shaking hands firmly while smoking a cigar. Think of Gordon Gekko in Wall Street. But today, it's almost easier to imagine a young man in his 30s wearing a hoodie. One of the reasons is that with Web 2.0, some of the biggest companies in the world right now are tech companies, often still run by their founder. The story of Steve Jobs probably played a huge part in this. Fired from Apple for being too immature, he came back and not only saved the company, but made it the most highly valuable enterprise in the world. Take a look at this article written when Satya Nadella, Microsoft's current CEO, was appointed. After detailing his background, the journalist ends with,
Nadella joins a long list of nerds running technology companies, big and small. People like Mark Zuckerberg, Tim Cook, and Larry Page.
Today, this situation seems normal, but as blogger Ari Jory explained, it was long thought that an engineer was incapable of running a company.
If techies lack basic human skills like communicating effectively or cracking a funny joke, then they won't make good managers. And don't even think of appointing such people as a CEO.
This prejudice has a name. The boffin fallacy.
The misconception technologists do not understand business, that it's something they can't do, won't enjoy, and is beneath them.
But today, it's obvious that a Silicon Valley founder is more competent to run his company than a Harvard MBA. So how can a nerd be a great CEO if they lack immaculate social skills? For one thing, investor Ben Horowitz says he prefers the founders of his portfolio companies to remain CEOs because they have moral authority. By moral authority, he means the ability to take risky decisions while convincing the company to follow them. For example, a CEO hired on the strength of his impressive resume to replace Zuck would never have been able to unite Facebook around the pivot to Meta. Teams trust him because he founded the company and he embodies the vision. But the key point is that you don't have to be a good manager to be a great CEO, because there is a difference between a leader and a manager. The leader is the one who creates and embodies the vision. The manager is the one who does performance reviews and project management. Both are important, but they don't have to be the same person. The CEO's role is to be a leader. Elon Musk is a terrible manager, impulsive and easy to anger, but he's also a brilliant leader who knows how to create a gigantic vision for his companies and convince people to follow him. The same goes for Zuckerberg. He embodies the company's vision, but he has surrounded himself with managers like Sheryl Sandberg, who was COO for 14 years and comes with the Harvard Business School label and management practices polished to perfection. When rereading David Fincher's interviews, it's amazing how accurate his understanding of Zuck has proven to be. A journalist asks him,
"But you go to great lengths to say that Mark isn't in it for the money. So what's he in it for?"
Fincher replies,
I believe that Mark is in it to fully realize his dream, which is to build an apparatus that allows him to connect to the world in a way that he's unable to do in his own life. People talk about Mark's borderline Asperger's, his horrific PR style, but I think that Facebook required someone with those kinds of limited social skills. If you're going to create an apparatus like Facebook, you have to start with somebody who's going to be able to understand how difficult it is to communicate.
But all this begs the question, why did Zuck need to change his image? Why does he care what people think of him as long as they keep using his apps? For a former loser who became a billionaire under heavy criticism, Zuck has a surprisingly well-adjusted view on the matter. He basically tells us, I know what people think of me, but I don't really respect most people's opinions.
I think that at some level, whether 25% of people dislike you or 75% of people dislike you, your experience as a public figure is going to be that there's a lot of people who dislike you, because like a huge part of the job is like you need to be getting feedback and internalizing feedback on how you can do better. And when the people whose opinions I respect call me out on getting stuff wrong, that hurts and makes me want to do better. But I think at this point I'm pretty tuned to just, all right, if I know they're they're kind of like operating in bad faith and they're not really trying to help, it doesn't, I think over time it just doesn't bother you that much.
So what's the point of changing your image? Partly it's a question of self-respect. No one wants to live their whole life defined by a loser persona. And partly it's a question of strategy. Nobody wants to work for a traitor either. The name change was for the same reason. The best virtual reality engineers in the world didn't want to work for Facebook, Auntie Gladys's favorite app. But it's much more enticing to work at Meta, the company that bet $14 billion on the future. I already know what the comment section is going to look like. How dare I say positive things about Zuckerberg? But if you understood my comparison with Musk, you'll understand that I haven't changed my mind about Zuck just because he's rich, but because I respect the quality of his decision making in life and business. You may not agree with everything Meta does, but don't pretend that there are easy solutions to all these problems and that you'd do a better job if you were in his shoes. And besides, the main criticism of Meta is that they collect our private data. But the truth that few people want to admit is that nobody cares about privacy. Or rather, nobody cares about privacy except the 0.54% of people who choose to use DuckDuckGo, the privacy protecting search engine. In the US, Facebook earns slightly more than $200 per user per year. It's much less in other regions. So in a world where people really cared about their privacy, Facebook could sell a Facebook premium service for $20 a month and be more profitable without collecting your personal data. But we all know that people don't value their privacy at $20 a month. They won't even make an effort to change their default search engine to avoid Google spying on their searches for little blue pills at 3 a.m. So, as long as it's clear that 99% of people won't lift a finger to protect their privacy, let's stop pretending that collecting data to offer a free service is a crime against humanity. 698 subscribers, only 99,302 remaining. After you subscribe, let me know what number subscriber you are in the comment. We can only see exact numbers up to 1,000 subs, and it will be funny to look back when I make it big. And if you want to see my breakdown of Andrew Tate's new marketing strategy, click here.